Okay, before I get started, I wanted to show you guys what exactly I'm going to be showing you how to make in this tutorial so you can decide if you want to watch the whole video or not. And it's a different way of rigging arms and legs. And it's an amazing technique that I learned from MOHO 33. She's a YouTuber that makes tutorials for MOHO, but they're not in English. So the arm tutorial that I watched, it's very complex, and I don't know how to do everything she did, but I made a dumbed down version of it for you guys to check out. And basically what it is, let me go to, well, let me show you first. This is a character I'm working on for a fan animation. And normally you can grab the bones that I have are the upper arm bone and the shoulder or forearm bone and then a wrist. So, you know, you can grab a hand and do all this and that. And you can foreshorten kind of if you grab a bone and pinch it, but you can see it deforms the artwork. So it's still kind of difficult to do. You'll have to rearrange the artwork every time you do it. Well, this new type of rig is made of pin bones. You can do this with older versions of MOHO / Anime Studio, but it's not going to, you're going to have to use just regular bones and kind of draw them out. But this is a little nicer because you can just click on a pin bone and move it around. So what we have here is I have rotation at the shoulders for these arms and the legs I haven't done yet. Oops, I got this kind of up there. But if you'll notice, I can grab the elbow joint or the wrist joint, and I can make them as big or as small as I want to force the perspective of the hand without deforming the artwork, which is really cool. So basically, I'm going to show you the little animation I've made, and just notice how the hands move and the arms.
It was great because it was the most Italian dude of all time. They went into an Italian restaurant with the most Italian dude of all time.
I didn't mean for his leg to go up like that. But it's a good thing to show you, actually. So let me go to frame 1 real quick. So why this is really important or really cool is because if you do body turns or you want to change the perspective of your character, I can do a body turn and then I can like have my hands in the front like the character is driving or writing at a table or something like that. And I can move the layers of the arms back or forward, and then I can change the leg positions, like do that kind of forced perspective thing. And imagine he has shoes on, but he looks like he's sitting now at a desk or in a car, and I can do that really easy without having to mess with the artwork. Also, I can create a walk cycle where the back leg is showing forced perspective, and it's just going to be really a cool thing to use. So I'll make another video about this in detail later, but I'm going to show you how I set this up. So let's go to the old model. Oops, where is he? And I'm going to re-rig this arm so you can see how that's done. Let's clear the frames. Oh, and here is my key capture so you can kind of see what I'm doing if you miss what, or if I miss telling you what I'm doing exactly. So, okay, on the bone layer, I'm going to hit B. I'll go ahead and select those arm bones and hit delete just to get rid of them. On frame 0, that's why it didn't work. Okay, now I'm going to use the grid, and it's kind of important that you use the grid. Well, it's not necessary, but it makes it 100 times easier if you have the grid on. So I'm going to do a Command G, turn the grid on. I'm going to do Shift Command G and change the grid spacing to about 20, just so I have a little bit bigger squares to work with. And I'm going to go ahead and move the artwork over to the side and make it straight. That way we can align things really easy. So I'll go to the upper right arm, and I'll do a Command A so I can select all the artwork and move it over. Hit T, grab that and move it over. Then I'm going to zoom in with my mouse wheel, and I'm going to just move these points so they're 2 grid spaces wide. And then I'll do the sleeve a little bit bigger. But there we go. And just making it really straight. Well, we can adjust the sleeve and the arm later, but right now we want something that's straight and then have these curves. I have 3 points on the left, right, and then in the center at the bottom of the arm. I have 1 point and I'm just curving it out so it makes a half circle or a semicircle. Okay. Then I'm going to click on the lower right arm, and it's on a different layer because I want to be able to move the upper and lower part of, or upper and lower layers of the arm before in front of or behind the body when I want it, and the hands too. So that's why they're on separate layers. So I'll go to the lower right arm, I'm gonna hit Command A, grab that artwork, hit T, move it over. I'll hit T again and grab the points, and I'm just gonna line up these points. Go ahead and put this point here at the joint. Make sure that's lined up. I'll do another point. Actually, we don't even need a point. We're gonna have it go straight across like that. And unless we need to use it later, but I think right now we'll just leave it like that, and then 2 grid spaces across, then a semicircle at the bottom where the wrist is, okay? So now we have our artwork ready to rig. We'll put the hand on at the very end. So what I'm gonna do is go to the bone layer. I'm gonna hit A, which is add bones. I'm gonna put 1 pin bone at the shoulder. And then I'm gonna also draw a bone out pointing towards the elbow, just like that. And I'm gonna hit B because I want to deselect it. And then I need to see where exactly that joint is. Let me click on lower. So I need to put one right here. It's hard to see. Let me hit T. So I need to put a pin bone right where the joint connects. So actually on the lower arm, I am gonna put another point just so you can kind of see the center. Let's hit A. Wait, lower right arm, add point. There we go. I'm adding a point and then I'm pulling it up and making a semicircle at the top. And these new handles, Bezier handles, are kind of messing me up a little bit. I just want it to curve out normally. And I cannot remember how. Oh, I'll just pull them up like that. Why is it doing that? Let's make that straight across. Hold on, I'm trying to find this point. Oh, we have an extra point here, that's why. Let's delete that. Hit T. Okay, so now we have 3 points. Why is this? Oh, there we go. Okay, now we have a semicircle at the bottom. 1, 2. So just so you guys can see, upper, lower, the parts. I'm going to pull these 2 pieces of artwork. The lower arm looks like this. Semicircle at the top, overlapping the upper arm, which looks like that. So they kind of form a circle, and we need to put another pin bone right there. So hit B, click on the canvas so nothing else is selected. I'll hit A and add a pin bone there. I'm going to point it towards the shoulder like that. Then I'm going to hit B and select the joint again, the pin bone of the shoulder, or I mean the elbow, and create a bone that's pointing towards the wrist. I'll hit B, deselect it by clicking on the canvas and hitting A, and then putting one where the wrist is, and then having a bone point towards the elbow joint. Now the reason why we have both pin bones and regular bones is for rotation purposes. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and hit Command A, which selects all the bones, and I'm gonna hit bone strength and turn down the bone strength by hitting left click and dragging to the left, just because we're using point binding. And this technique definitely needs you to use point binding for this. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is select this first bone in the shoulder that's pointing, and I'm gonna bind the top part of the sleeve and the top part of the upper arm to it. So we'll select the upper right arm, and I'll hit G, and I'm gonna go ahead and select the points on the top here and the sleeve, but not the bottom. Okay, I'm gonna hit bind points, and then I'm going to hit B, select this one that's pointing up towards the shoulder, and I'm gonna select these bottom 3 points. So I'll hit G, grab those points, and hit bind points. Okay, so now what we've done is if I go into the timeline and I go to the bone layer, then I grab these bones that are pointing. That's bound to that, okay? And those 3 points are bound there. But you'll see these points, the 3 points down here? They're still pointing upward, or they're not rotating. And what we want to do is, if I grab this, I want to turn it and make sure it's pointing always to the shoulder, so it always is straight. And I want this bone to be pointing this way, so it's always straight no matter what. So let's undo everything. So the way we're going to do that is using targeting. So this bone that's pointing towards the shoulder, you can see it's named B17. It'll probably be a different name for you, but just get that name. And we want B17 to always be pointing to the pin bone. And the pin bone is B11. So we're going to go to Bone Constraints. Go to, let's make sure we have B17 selected. And remember, we're pointing to B11. So go to Bone Constraints, Target, which basically means point to. It's the same thing as saying point to. Point to B11, always. Oops. Make sure you're doing this on frame 0. Because that's always, whenever you're creating anything, make sure it's on frame 0. So let's try that again. B17 is going to point to B11. So click that. And then we want to do the opposite here. This bone that's pointing down to the elbow, we always want it pointing to B16. Again, this will be a different name probably, but just select the bone where you want to point it. So 15 goes to 16. So select 15, target 16. Okay? So it's always going to be pointing towards it. Now, since we parented at the very beginning, we have the pin bone, the parent to these pointing bones. I feel like I'm saying bones too much, but if we go into the timeline and I hit T to grab the pin bones, you'll notice, let me hit Command G to turn off the grid so you can see. Oops. So when I grab that pin bone, no matter where I move it, this one's, it's always they're pointing towards each other, the artwork is. So I can do foreshortening. Now there is a little bit of a problem because the sleeve doesn't foreshorten, but I'll fix that later. I just haven't messed with it enough to figure that out. But we'll do the same exact thing for the lower arm. And actually go to the lower arm, hit G. Even though I have a semicircle here, I just needed that to kind of show where that center point was. I'm gonna make that flat. So I'm just pulling that down, snapping there. I'll do the same thing for the bottom arm. So if I hit B, I need this bone pointing to the wrist pin bone. So B18 needs to point to B19. So select it, B18 points to B19. Okay, and then we need B20 pointing to B16. So we'll select it, target to B16. And if you've done it right, you should be able to foreshorten the forearm and the upper arm. So let's go into the timeline, hit Command G so we don't see the grid, and select the bone layer and hit T. Let's grab that. Oh, something's not connected. Must not have bound. Let's go ahead and make sure that's bound correctly. So the lower arm, I'm going to hit G or T and select the lower arm and move it to the side real quick. I just want to make sure I have everything bound correctly. So those points need to be bound to this bone. So B18, I'm going to hit G. Well, I hit B first and then selected that bone. Now I'm hitting G, selecting these 3 points, and say bind points, bind points. And it's okay, it's to the side. We can move it back in place. So hit T, click on the entire piece of artwork and move it back over. Let's go into the timeline, make sure it's bound correctly. Hit Command G, go to the bone layer, hit T, let's grab that. There we go. So now we have this joint that looks good at pretty much all angles until I get into the sleeve, which I probably can fix with an action. And then I can grab the wrist bone. Oh, I don't have that bound correctly either. Let's go back to 0, or I didn't do it. Let's go to the lower arm, select B, and then hit G and grab these points at the bottom. Oh, on the lower right arm. So hit G, with the bones highlighted, those 3 points are highlighted, and hit bind points, bind points. Okay, we'll go back into the timeline. I'll select the bone layer. There we go. Now it looks good. That's what we were looking for. So it's not that difficult, oops, to do, but now we need to connect our hands real quick. So I'm going to, I have a bunch of hands, but they're in switch layers. There's, I don't know, I have a few different ones. So let's change that to facing down like this. So what I want to do is bind this entire folder to this bone right here. So let's go ahead and say bind layer on frame 0, bind layer. Oh, let's draw a new bone, I'm sorry. Go to the bone layer, hit B, select that pin bone at the wrist, and we'll draw, hit A, and draw a bone going straight down. And I'm holding shift to keep it straight. Hit bone strength, hit left click and drag to the left so there's no bone strength on there. And now we'll select the right hand folder and click bind layer, and we're binding this layer, the hands, to this bone. Then we can just move it into place. I'm going to change the point of origin to kind of the center of the hand. Then I'm going to move the layer with the move layer to, or manipulate, transform tool. Move that in place and kind of line that up to where the bone, pin bone is. I can zoom in and get it right in the dead center if I need to. Okay, like that. And let's make sure, oh, I'm gonna put rotation on there too. So let's make another pin bone just for rotation. So I'll hit B, click on the canvas so nothing's selected. Oops, with the bone layer selected, hit B. And then I'm gonna hit A, add points. I'm just gonna make it hover outside of the hand real quick, like that. Okay, and I want this pin bone to be bound to the wrist pin bone. So I'm gonna hit P and make it point towards that so it's always connected to the wrist. And then I want to select, or hit B and select the bone that's pointing, and I always want it pointing to this new pin bone that I've made. So we want bone 21 to point to bone 22. So select it again, go to bone constraints, target, which again just means the same as point to, B22. I know that sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo, but let me show you what that did. I'll go into the timeline with the bone layer selected, and if I hit T and grab this, maybe, see how that bone is always pointing to wherever I drag this? So now we have a nice little control for the hand. I can grab this bone and move the elbow, move the wrist, and now we've got a fully rigged arm that's almost ready to use. Let's connect it to the body, because obviously if I go in the timeline and move him, this is not connected yet. So in order for this to rotate, I'm gonna draw a bone from the chest bone and parent it, or have this new, it's kind of like a shoulder rotation bone, I guess you would call it. So let's go to frame 0, and I'll unclick everything just so you can see. I want to select the body bone. You might have just one, but whatever bone you want to connect to the body, select that, hit A to add, and I think the rotation is going to be about here, but we can move that too. I'm making it kind of big so it's easy to grab. Turn down the bone strength, left click and drag, and then hit B, and I want to parent the pin bones of the shoulder, holding shift down, the elbow, and the wrist. I'm going to hit P, and I'm going to point them all to this shoulder bone, like that. Okay? So if I go into the timeline and I hit B, let's deselect everything, hit T so I can grab this, I can go ahead and line my pin bone up to, if I can grab it, to the pivot point of that shoulder rotation bone that I just drew. Kind of that, like right there. So now if I ever grab it, it rotates all 3 of the pin bones at the same time. Oops, if I can grab it, wait, there it is, okay? And then I can grab these pin bones. But the problem is these bones that are pointing the artwork to one another is kind of in the way, and I don't want to grab those. So let's go back to frame 0, and I'm going to do one more thing, is I'm going to hide them and then highlight my pin bones, because those are really the only things I'm going to be using. So I'll hit B, drag over those bones that are pointing up and down, hold shift down, select these, select this one, and then go up to the bone menu and say hide selected bones, so we don't see them. So it just cleans up our work area a little bit. Then I'll go ahead and select the pin bones, because these are basically our controls, and I'll highlight them. So I'll go ahead and change this to green or whatever color, and then go to frame 1. And now I have this really, really cool rig where if I can do any position I want. I can, oops, have them all selected. Hit T, I can just grab this elbow, I can move his hand here, I can rotate it so it looks like it's on his hip. I can swap out my hands, you know, whatever hands I need. Rotate, hit B, rotate this. Put his hand up here. Oops, something's messed up. Why is this not? Something is messed up here. I'm kind of glad that happened, because I want to fix it so you guys can see how to fix stuff like that. So let's see what's going on. Let's view all bones, show all bones, and see what's happening when I move it. I'm gonna hit T and move it. Okay, this bone is not targeting the elbow. So let's go back, hit B. So we need bone 20 to target or point at 16 at all times. So select bone 20, bone constraints, target, B16. Now close it. Now let's go in here and see. There we go. Now it's looking good. I don't have the hands set in the exact place I need them to be, but you can kind of see, get the idea. So go to frame 1. I'm going to kind of set it up now. Actually, let's hide those bones again so they're not in the way. Hit B. Grab all these bones that we don't want to see anymore. Hide selected bones. Go to frame 1. Hit T. I'll move this. Whoops. Move that. If I can grab the pin bone. Kind of set that right where the pivot point is. Like that. So we can rotate the entire arm if we need to, but then I can hit T and grab the elbow and the wrist and pose it in any way I like. And that's it. I know it's kind of not too long of a video, and I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing bones, but the thing is, it's going to, like I said, this is going to kind of change everything because I can grab the shoulder bone and I can change it so if I'm doing a body turn, you know, I can move it really easy, and then I can have the arms lift up, you know, to where it looks like the arm is sticking straight forward. Again, I have to fix the sleeve, but you can kind of see how this forced perspective is really, really cool. And the arm and leg movements are just gonna look a lot better, I think. But I'll make another video about that another time because I'm sure I've talked way too much. But yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. Again, definitely check out MOHO33 and subscribe to her channel because she just makes amazing tutorials about MOHO. Even if you don't speak the language, I advise you to watch them. And yeah, I think that's it. Again, I'll do another video on this technique and show you how I can, or what I've done to kind of improve it, I guess. So yeah, thanks again for watching.
The first episode was great because it was the most Italian dude of all time. They went into an Italian restaurant with the most Italian dude of all time.
Hey, this is just an added on addition to show you guys what I've created since I've made the tutorial, and just wanted to show you why this is going to make it so you can have a lot more body positions. So right now I have the character rigged up to have his lower arms and his hands in front of him, so you can do a lot more poses like this where maybe they're driving in a car or explaining something. You know, this guy is a comedian, so he could be standing at a mic. I can adjust the arms, and like I said, right now the upper arms are behind the character, so I can make poses like this, but I also have a smart bone that I can turn so this arm is completely in front of the character, and it has the arm rotation here. Go back, and also the legs. Since they're rigged the same way, we can have our character looking like he's sitting, facing forward, or you know, make walk cycles really easy. But also, the body turning is going to be a little bit easier too. Let me go back some, because I have a body turn on here too. So when I turn him, that arm goes behind him automatically, so we can have him standing like this and explaining this way. I haven't done a head turn yet, but again, you can position the arms really easy by just grabbing the rotating bones and stuff. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully I'll have a new rig for you guys. I'll try and put it in my store as well. But yeah, thanks for watching if you've made it this far, and I'll talk to you guys soon.